Hi, my name is Emil Soto and the topic is Molecular Genetic Anatomy and Risk Profile of Hirschsprung disease. Well, we need to know the definition. It is a motor disorder of the intestines which is caused by the failure of neural crest cells to migrate completely during the intestinal development during fetal life. The resulting ganglionic segment of the colon fails to relax, causing a functional obstruction. And we have a video.
During a normal pregnancy, nerve cells travel down the developing nervous system to the growing digestive system, including the large intestine. These nerve cells develop into ganglion cells between the muscle layers of the large intestine. The ganglion cells send nerve signals to the muscle layers to contract and relax. These contractions are part of a series of wave-like motions that push waste along the length of the large intestine. In a newborn baby, this movement pushes waste along the length of the large intestine toward the rectum and anus. If the developing baby has Hirschsprung disease, these cells either don't reach this area or don't become functioning ganglion cells when they get there. When this baby is born, a section of large intestine does not have ganglion cells. It can also extend for a short segment or a longer segment involving the colon, or rarely the entire colon. Without ganglion cells to signal the intestinal wall to relax, this area of the large intestine stays contracted and narrow, blocking the passage of waste and gas. As waste and gas build up behind the blockage, the large intestine and abdomen begin to swell. The baby may develop an intestinal infection called enterocolitis. Then the intestine may stretch further and cause vomiting and nutrition problems. A baby with Hirschsprung disease will need a surgical procedure to remove the diseased section of his or her large intestine. Until the baby is ready to have this procedure, he or she will need rectal irrigations. This procedure will help remove gas and waste several times a day, which helps prevent infection. The most common surgical procedure for Hirschsprung disease is called a laparoscopically assisted transanal pull-through. During the procedure, the surgeon will make 3 or 4 tiny incisions in the baby's abdomen and insert a thin, lighted camera and special instruments. The surgeon will use these instruments to loosen and remove the diseased intestine's attachments to the body. To remove the diseased intestine, the surgeon will make a circular incision in the baby's rectum inside of the anus. Then the surgeon will pull the diseased intestine out through the baby's anus and remove it. The remaining healthy intestine will be sutured to the baby's anus. This new connection will form a tube that can properly move waste out of the body. At the end of the procedure, the surgeon will remove the instruments and close the abdominal incisions with sutures or skin closure tape. Since most of the procedure will be done through the anus, there will be no incisions to close outside the anus.
The next point that we have is that I have is application in medicine, where they investigate the variation in risk according to the type of pathogenic allele, the contribution of each type of allele to Hirschsprung disease in the general population, and the distribution of these types of allele across phenotypes. Our primary goal was to enable a genetic stratification on patients in order to determine how genetic susceptibility manifests in clinical disease and its penetrance. Well, I have a picture that explains that, a video. The next is the pros and cons. The pros is that Hirschsprung disease is usually an isolated condition and unassociated with family history. This find led to the discovery of 17 genes with approximately 500 rare disease-associated coding variants. We will have an advanced understanding of the functional basis of Hirschsprung disease. The pros, it is since there are many genetic variations, and it is very difficult to be diagnostic before the baby is born. 4 common transcriptions in user variants were associated with moderate risk of Hirschsprung disease. There are multiple risk factors with a specific genotypes which cause a high rate of indistence in patients.
Zsolt Varga was born on Valentine's Day in 1995 in Hungary with a condition doctors there were unfamiliar with. He had Hirschsprung's disease and complications related to the painful and sometimes life-threatening gastrointestinal condition that blocks the intestines.
My doctors tried to find a solution, but my condition kept getting worse.
He had surgery as a toddler, but his condition worsened again in 2001 to the point where he had to be transferred by medical helicopter to Budapest for care. Even that wasn't enough. He wasn't getting better. His family posted flyers and turned to social media for help. His community rallied around him to raise money for him to travel to find better treatment. His doctor referred him to experts from Cincinnati Children's.
We first met Zsolt and his family in Serbia. We had a medical missions trip through the colorectal center here at Cincinnati Children's. His surgeon had initially contacted us to see if Zsolt could come to the United States. Hirschsprung's disease is a relatively rare disease. We as a center see many of the complicated cases. We have patients that come from all over the United States and internationally.
The Cincinnati Children's team did an initial surgery for Zsolt in Serbia, but he needed a second-stage surgery. His care team felt he would receive the best care if he traveled to Cincinnati. So he did. The surgery was successful, and he stayed for nearly 2 years while he recovered. Now he's able to go back home and get back to living.
I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Dickey and her whole team.
They saved his life.
At igazából, ugye, ahogy megemlítettem,
What I went through made me realize really important things. Who I can count on and what's important in life. Knowing that I can count on the doctors and experts here gives me comfort and makes me happy.
There are very few patients like Zolt who want to share a story like his. I think he wants to educate and he wants to help other families and other kids like him that, there is hope. They can live normal lives.
Mert általában mindig, ha tervezek, akkor történik valami.
Right now, I'm just taking a day at a time. I'm grateful and I'm hopeful.
Find out more about how, together, we're helping to change the outcome for kids all over the world. Visit cincinnatichildrens.org/colorectal.
And next is the issues applied in Ecuador. In a survey, it showed that Hirschsprung disease is determined as a rare condition or low prevalence in the Andean region. Following the results of the response of the doctors surveyed, in addition, in the review of the specialized medical literature, it is specific data of the controls of the region, only in Peru.
Hirschsprung disease is when a baby is born with intestines that can't move stool out of the body. This is because part of the intestine is missing its nerve cells, called ganglion cells, which keeps the intestine from working normally. Hirschsprung disease is fairly common, affecting about 1 in 5,000, and is more common in boys than girls. About 20% of cases occur within families, so it may be genetic. As a baby grows, ganglion cells migrate down the small intestine and colon. These ganglion cells trigger a series of contractions and expansions called peristalsis that help move food through the intestines. But in Hirschsprung disease, the ganglion cells don't migrate down all the way, leaving an area without any ganglion cells, which is called an aganglionic area. This has two effects. First, the aganglionic area and the anal canal are unable to relax. This means that they are much stronger than they should be and create a high amount of pressure. And second, the peristalsis in the healthy area can't overcome this pressure to move stool out of the body. Usually, this only affects the lower end of the colon, but in rare cases, it can affect the whole colon, or in extreme cases, even the small intestine. After the baby is born, stool starts to build up, and the stomach may become very large. The colon responds by becoming swollen and painful, which is called colitis.
And the next point is the conclusion. In conclusion, the Hirschsprung disease is a congenital disorder characterized by the absence of the ganglion cells in a variable portion of the gastrointestinal tract, has a over incidence of 1 per every 500 live burns. It's caused by defects which occur during the migration of the cells of the enteric nervous system during embryonic development. Intestinal mobility is compromised in patients with Hirschsprung disease, with possible consequent risks of bowel obstruction.
Hello everyone, Nurse Liz here for another dose of education for your illumination. I am here to inform you about Hirschsprung's disease. Hirschsprung's disease is a congenital disorder of the intestines in which the enteric nerves fail to develop adequately in utero. Lack of innervation causes decreased or absent peristalsis, leading to constipation or complete impaction of the intestine. Let's take the case of baby Boo. By 36 hours of life, baby Boo was having bilious vomiting and was noted to have significant abdominal distension. It was later discovered that Boo had not yet passed meconium. Baby Boo's abdominal radiograph of upper GI series indicated a lower GI obstruction, and rectal biopsy was found to lack ganglionic cells. Baby Boo was thus diagnosed with Hirschsprung's disease. Baby Boo had to undergo a diverting colostomy with plans to return to the operating room when larger for a surgical pull-through procedure. Children with Hirschsprung's disease require surgical intervention called an endorectal pull-through procedure. The goal of this surgery is to remove the diseased segment of the intestine and reconnect the remaining healthy intestine to the anus. Following the procedure, most children achieve normal bowel function. However, some children may develop post-surgical complications such as inflammation or infection of the intestines. Early recognition is critical for treatment. Take your child to the hospital if you notice the following: swollen abdomen, rectal bleeding, constipation, lack of energy, vomiting, or fever. Many of you caregivers are probably scared and anxious about your child undergoing the pull-through surgery, but studies show that 19% of children had optimal return of bowel function, 72% had good bowel activity, and 9% had a fair outcome. I hope this public service announcement helped increase awareness about Hirschsprung's disease. I am Nurse Liz, and I'm always happy to help. Goodbye.
Thank you.